They're like,
Right.
Mom, you've changed so much over the years. You're just different. And I love that they recognize that. Like, I recognize it, but I love more that they get to recognize it. Because I think at the end of the day, every parent walks around as an adult and is like, I did the best that I could.
Right.
Step right up, folks. You're now entering It's a Circus, where parenting isn't always a show-stopping act, but it's certainly entertaining. I'm your host, Elsa, here to prove that no one really knows what they're doing, and that's perfectly fine. Let's have some real conversations, peel back the layers, and remind you that you're never alone in the madness. Let's get the show rolling.
Okay, I am beyond excited for this episode. I am interviewing Lindsey, the founder of Feral Farmacy. She talks through how she got to be on a farm with 4 kids and animals, and that anything that lives here needs to only thrive in neglect, and it's hilarious and very relatable. She talks about homeschooling and how she started her business. She really gets vulnerable and talks about her nervous breakdown that she had and how that really made her relook at what she was carrying every day, whether it was energetically or emotionally. She has a lot of advocacy work that she does with her community, and it's very inspiring. You will definitely fall in love with her vulnerability, her tenacity, and her humor, and you will want to be her best friend by the end of this. So let me get into her bio. Lindsey Leigh is a homeschooling mama of 4 raising feral farm kids on nearly 7 acres of wild, wonderful land in Mayaca City, Florida. She's the founder of Feral Farmacy, a wellness brand rooted in the belief that nature gives us everything we need to heal, thrive, and live wildly well. From her homestead apothecary, her handcraft small batch, organic, herbal, skincare, and wellness remedies using plants either grown on her farm or sourced ethically and locally. Formally trained in herbalism and holistic health, Lindsey's journey deepened after her husband's cancer diagnosis, a pivotal moment that inspired her to walk away from the corporate world and pursue a more intentional, land-connected life. What began as a personal mission to heal her own family has grown into a thriving business and a platform for encouraging others to return to their roots. Beyond the homestead, Lindsey is a passionate advocate for medical freedom and has recently stepped into the realm of land preservation, working to protect the rural spaces that make regenerative living possible. She's also the creator of Sarasota Manatee Homeschooling and Farm Swap, a monthly community gathering and market focused on food, freedom, and sustainability. Whether she's planting herbs, teaching her kids, or standing up for her community, Lindsey leads with grit, heart, and a deep love for the land she calls home. I am so excited to get into it. So let's go. Lindsey, welcome to It's a Circus Podcast. I am so excited to dive in, but I do have a first question to kind of get us started. And that is, what are your mamahood stats? What are your kiddos? How old are they? How long have you been a mom for? And have you always wanted to be a mother?
That's
Yeah.
really loaded.
I know, right? Go a lot of ways.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
I'm super excited for this. So I'm a mom of 4. I homeschool all 4 of them, and I have 3 girls and 1 boy. So it's 17, 14, 9, and 5. My 9-year-old is my boy. I became a mom when I was 25, and I think I always dreamed of being a mom. I think that's what I wanted my job to be, but society tells you that's not a job.
Right.
How
So ridiculous.
It was like my thing that I think I wanted from the time that I was very little. Playing babies was just something I loved doing. And now I watch 2 of my girls are very like maternal like that. And I'm like, they're going to be the same way. My other one, I don't know what she's got going on.
Oh, I love that. Well, that is wonderful. I'm really excited to talk about homeschooling, but I'd love to understand where you are now and thinking about motherhood, 4 kiddos, first one at 25. How has that role of motherhood impacted where you are in your life right now?
Everything.
Yeah.
I think it impacts every aspect of your life in ways that you didn't really know, like you were not completely not prepared for.
Right.
My friend and I were just joking the other day because I'm like, they just let you have a baby and then they just send you home.
I know.
I hope
I
you
know.
figure it out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then they're like, and then there's a tribe. And I'm like, where's the tribe? When do they do they get here?
Yeah.
But I think it impacts everything. At the core root of everything that I do, my children are why I do everything.
Mhm.
So I think leaving this world a better place than we came into it, and raising leaders really is like life work. And that
Yeah.
is important. Uh, as moms, society tells us like we need to do all these other things and
Mhm.
that you need to have a career. And I think having a career is great. If at the core of it, you're still a mom and not having that whole guilt of like, now I'm going to work and now I work from home and
Mhm.
like we do everything at home. So my kids see that. My kids can understand. And there's pockets of time where I'm like, hey, I have to like really focus right now.
Mhm.
Give me a minute.
Mhm.
And there's other times that that's not happening. But I think like impacting each area of my life, like my children surround that. That's just so important and such a big part of being a mom, and leading by example for them so that they know what that looks like. Hopefully
Yeah.
that answered
Oh
your
my
question.
God, yes. Yes, it is all of those things. And your oldest is 17, and my little kiddos, my oldest is 3.5. So I still have a ways to go.
Yeah.
But I find myself as the years go by stronger and clearer in my vision to what I want for my kids, what I want to be to them when I look around the world, how I want to like communicate and share with them.
Yeah.
How have you, what kind of impacted the decision making around homeschooling and how you run your family now and working from home and that type of life that you guys have created at this point? What kind of things impacted you to land in and say, this is my philosophy, this is what I want to do and run my family?
Sure. I think a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
Like, um, we have a science experiment in our house,
Mhm.
because I think each kid has had their own set of things that we did and went, this isn't working. We need
Right.
to shift and do this differently. Um, my big thing, I think maternally, I always felt like sending my children somewhere for 8 hours a day and
Hmm.
having somebody else raise them and get to experience so many firsts seemed very uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
Like, really, from the time I was pregnant, like, I was like,
Right.
well, I'm not doing that.
Hmm.
Um, but again, then there's, people and chatter.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I think, at 25, when I first became a mom, it was very easy for me to feel like all those opinions mattered. And I think, like you just said, like
Hmm.
as the years go by and you grow and develop and
Hmm.
you almost create this new set of boundaries and these
Right.
new things, and you're like, well, turns out none of these opinions actually affect my family at all,
Yeah.
including paying my like, I always ask people, I'm like, "Do those opinions pay your bills?" Because, like, I don't know. They pay mine. But I think, like, homeschooling for the big thing for us was, like, raising this, like, whole thinking human,
Hmm.
um, and not raising compliant children, and I grew up in a very like children are to be seen and not heard kind of time.
Hmm.
And I didn't get choices. I didn't get to make decisions
Hmm.
about anything. And so
Wow.
it's really important from a really young age that I give my kids choices, even like what they want to wear for the day.
Right.
Like, these are your two choices. Pick
Hmm.
one. And letting them have agency over those things. And so 2020 was very eye-opening for our family because I started to realize that the system was working exactly how it was designed, and that was to have these very compliant humans just doing exactly what they were being told to do. And it was pivotal for our family because I was like, you guys are never going back to school. Like,
Right.
I'm never sending you back. My two littles have never been to school. And I think, for our family, and I understand this doesn't work for every family, but for our family, it has totally changed the dynamic of our family when our children were outside of the house and being influenced, and to people, that's socialization. They're like, oh, they're socializing, but it's like, who are they socializing with? Like, you don't get to pick that. You don't get to pick the teacher that they have.
Right.
You don't get to pick the students that they're surrounded by. You don't get to choose any of those things. And the more I was present in the school system and volunteering, I was like, there's so much chaos, like
Right.
yelling
Oh, man.
and this like militant kind of thing. And I'm like, this is not okay. Like, my nervous system is rattled. And so I found like when I was bringing my kids home, they were just explosive. There was so much fighting and arguing and all of that. And so when we brought them home to homeschool them, I would say the first 6 months were horrifying.
Really?
Yeah, it was horrible. And I kept thinking, like, this is why people don't want their kids home with them. Like, and it was so much fighting, but for them, it was just different. And then there was this, like, you're a terrible teacher. You're not keeping us busy, because they were used to that 8 hours a day of just like information, information, information. And I'm like, you don't need all of that. Like, you're memorizing it so that you can take a test. We're not doing that.
Right.
So it was a big shift for our family. And then when we shifted, I started to see my family get closer. So our family unit got more bonded and closer. And I think that's the village. Like, that's the tribe. Like, the tribe, it was right here in our house. We just were never leaning on each other. We were in external places.
That is so beautiful, Lindsey. That like gives me little goosies. So you talk about a shift that happened. Was there a specific moment, or was it just came to you like, this isn't working for us anymore, we need to try something else?
I think the latter of the two.
Yeah.
I'm very like ebb and flow in life. And even from like a homeschool aspect, like I think having a quarterly family meeting, if you will, is so important. And again, giving your children agency over what's happening to say, like, hey, what do you love about right now? Like, what do you love about this season? And what do you like maybe not like so much? And then changing that and not feeling so like you have to ride it out. And I don't mean that in all aspects, because listen, if my kids sign up for a sport, I make them ride it out.
You're like, no quitting. Yeah.
For it, you're gonna finish the season, and then we don't ever have to do it again. But I think, like, too, even with homeschooling in the beginning, it was like us choosing curriculum. And I always feel so much pressure when people ask me, like, well, what curriculum works for you? Or what do you guys do? And I'm like, who cares what I do?
Yeah.
Like, you do what you need to do. But we, again, are in a society of this very, like, I don't want to screw it up. Like, I need to be perfect. I need to have it all figured out instead of just jumping in and seeing what happens. So I think that's important. Just like the revisiting of like, hey, this isn't working for our family. We also live so far from civilization.
Yeah, tell us where you live and all of that good stuff, because I think that is so interesting too.
Yeah, so we live in Mayaca City. We live in Old Mayaca, which is very historically rich. I don't think people realize that. So our property backs to the north end of the Mayaca State Park, and like the nearest pretty much anything is a good 45 minutes away. Um, and so that was a big thing when we moved out here was the commute to school. And I think again, that was like more added pressure of like the getting up, the rushing around, the like doing
Mm.
all of this to send them somewhere, to have them get in the car at the end of the day, scream and fight, like just the routine of life.
Mhm.
And um, so it really made sense. I think when we were put in a position to be forced to homeschool during COVID,
Mhm.
it was like, guys, are we just going to keep doing this? Like,
Mhm.
is everybody on the same page? Like,
Mhm.
we're going to ride this out. And I always told them, if you want to go back to school, you can do that. But where we live is definitely, it's secluded. There's not a lot out here. And it's intentional of like going into town and making trips into town and stuff like that. But again, like I just said to my son the other day, because he hates leaving the house, hates it. And I'm like, don't you ever want to leave? Like, let's go do something. And he's like, I love our house. It's so fun here.
Oh
And I'm
my
like,
gosh.
I never felt that growing up. Like, I was like, get me the hell out of this joint. Like,
Mhm.
whose house can I go to other than being here?
Mhm.
Um, so I love that he loves being here. And he'll say, like, well, when you get old, can I like live here and take care of you? And like, when you and dad die, like, can I stay here? So like, he loves it here.
Mhm.
Um, And that for me is like, okay, this is why we make the sacrifice to live in the middle of nowhere.
Right, exactly. You're like, these are the little nuggets that are affirming this decision all the time. Yeah, I
One-
I love that. Um, oh my gosh, so amazing. So your when did you move out? When did you guys move out to the Mayaka area?
We moved out here 6 years ago
Mm-hmm.
when I was like super duper pregnant with my fourth child.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was like, you're going to hate it and you're going to move back.
Really?
Yeah. We actually had 6 friends follow us after we moved out here. And the last family just moved back into town.
Huh.
So I think the lifestyle is not for everybody, but like Instagram glamorizes farm life. And
Yes.
people are like, that looks so fun. And then they come out here and realize it's legitimate work
Right.
and it's dirty.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you cannot have nice things out here. There's so much dust. Like people always see my wraparound porch, they're like, do you just rock in your rocking chair on your wraparound? I'm like, oh yes. That's what all day.
Oh my gosh. So, yes. So you have animals. And
Hmm.
when you got the property, was that the goal to start like having animals and all of that, or was it something else?
I don't really know that we had a plan.
Yeah.
I think in the great scheme of things, like we knew that that was a thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
we were like, well, we'll get cows or a horse or something. Chicken math is like so real. I like so everyone was like, you have to get a chicken. And so my girls started 4-H and got 2 chickens. And then it was like, we need more chickens. And then you start to like chase breeds and colors of eggs and all sorts of random things. And before you know it, you have an entire flock of chickens. And they're super fun. But I'm not like we don't have large livestock,
Mm-hmm.
and I really like I was telling some friends last night, everything on my farm thrives off neglect. So like if you can't if you can't hang here like with minimal like anything,
Mm-hmm.
then you can't be here. So humans included. No, I'm just joking. We're all gonna figure it out. No, but for real, like
Yeah.
somebody was like, "Oh, how do you like grow all the things? And how do you like you have a lot of things that you need to keep alive on a daily basis?" And I'm like, "I do, but it's minimal responsibility because I don't have time and effort for that. Like goats and horses and cows to me now that I live out here seems very overwhelming. Like in the season, it's just not going to work. So we do have chickens, we have turkeys, and we have emus, and then we have a plethora of farm cats, and they all thrive off neglect, which is great.
It's the vibe that needs to happen. I'm so here for it.
It's like, yeah, if you can't be feral, you gotta go.
Okay, really good segue, because I think this is all leading to your brand and your company. And I just want to say, I have so much respect for the philosophy of like coming back to the basics. And I shared with you offline, I grew up with a home ec teacher as a mom. And so the idea of like sewing and canning and homemade things and all of that is this craft that is just woven in me in a way that is so nostalgic and appreciative of anybody that's out there making an effort to remember these things and share in that learning. And so I would just love for you to kind of go off on that and then tell us how you got there.
Yeah, it's for a long time, I felt like I grew up in the wrong era. I'm like, I don't belong here. I just want to be barefoot. And I think when we first moved in, so our neighbors are Amish, and I remember saying to my neighbor, like, I'm basically Amish, but without all the rules. And I'm like, I probably just offended her. Um, but she didn't say anything. She was like, "Oh, okay." But I think I've always loved the simplicity of that. So both of my great grandmas, and like I'm a first generation American, so um by grandmas, I mean they were adopted to my family, but they still had those really values of like women being in the kitchen and making food from scratch. And that was just something that I grew up with through being around them. And then when they had passed away, that kind of disappeared. And I remember just always really feeling the pull for that. Like, I'm like, I want somebody to teach me all of those things, but I didn't have somebody to teach me all of those things. So a lot of what I do is self-taught. I do have formal education in like herbalism and holistic health and things like that. But the formal education of that is nothing like getting in there and like actually figuring it out for yourself and getting your hands dirty. So I've always like mealtime is very important for our family. We eat dinner together as a family every single night. And so I think like those little things we just compounded over time. So it was like, well, let's add this and let's add this. And before you know it, it was like a full really homesteading lifestyle. And it's not 100%. I mean, it's kind of hard to do that in a modern day world, but my kids understand like why we do the things that we do. They also understand that there's seasons for things. In certain seasons, it's a lot of work to do one specific thing before we, move to the next. So, I don't know, like it's just always been so fascinating for me. And like, I'm not an expert at all. Everything that I do is trial and error. And I think that's why people don't do it. Because it's like, they're like, oh, I just want somebody to spoon feed me the information. But it's in the trial and error that like, I've learned so much and I enjoy those moments. I love making fun of myself, like especially from like growing things. Like I'm like, you guys don't be jealous. Like I posted a couple years ago, I'm like, I grew this from seed. It was like the world's smallest piece of carrot, but it had like the longest stem ever. I was like, this is gonna be like, it is gonna be the best carrot ever. And we pulled it out, and I was literally like, I was like, you have to be kidding me. And the anticipation, because my kids were excited too. They were like, what?
How is this possible?
I'm like, it's okay, guys. Like, you're gonna try again next year. I remember my teenagers being like, "Mom, it's so much easier to just go to the store." I'm
Mm.
like, "You're right. It is.
Mhm.
It is." But there's something like so profound in the waiting of like waiting for things to happen. Like even waiting for our chickens to start laying eggs. Like
Mhm.
it's like, "Oh my gosh, we've been feeding you forever, you freeloaders. Like at what point do you start like giving us something back?" I love it. I love the lifestyle of it, but I think again, it's not for everybody. And so teaching that to people for me, I love doing. I love being able to teach people what I have learned so that they don't have to go through the trial and error if they don't want to, and then they can take that information and do what they want with it. So I think, yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
It's so cool. And I will tell you, I ran across you online, and
Mhm.
the name of your business is so cool. It's the Feral Farmacy. And I think that is just brilliant. The workshop that I had looked at was the canning workshop. And so this idea of you going through the trial and error and then giving it back to whoever else would want to learn, and that gift of sharing and the knowledge, I think is absolutely incredible. How did the Feral Pharmacy come about?
So it started as a hobby,
Yeah.
and really me just making stuff for my family. And every time I would share, people be like, "Well, can you make extra? Just make me some."
Yeah.
And it started with simple things like elderberry syrup and like just trying to get people to understand like there's a more natural approach than like constantly running to the pharmacy for everything. Um, and like, who knew? Like, you could like take these berries and just put them in some boiling water and it's medicine. So that's really how it started, just us doing stuff for our family. And then my husband got cancer. And when he was diagnosed with cancer, it was a huge wake up call for our family. Like, wha- really just advocating for ourselves, and saying like, how did we get here? Like, what's the root cause? How are we here? And how can we like not visit this ever again? Or at least try really hard to not visit it ever again. So we got really intentional about what was going in and on our body. And so I think something that was like I kind of played around with became no, we're gonna slowly start to remove things from our house. It wasn't like a overnight thing of like throwing all the things away and starting fresh. It was like, hey, let's start with soap.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, let's change our laundry detergent and let's that kind of thing. And then intentional reading labels and doing things like that and just being more conscious and aware of everything. And I think for a while we did fall into like a team extreme kind of thing where it was almost unsustainable how extreme we were, but we knew that that needed to happen in order for him to heal.
Wow.
And so after that experience, what my hobby was then turned into people purchasing stuff from me. And then everyone saying, you need a website. And that happened for literally probably 6 years of people telling me I needed a website. And I was like, absolutely not. And I didn't want a website because I loved it. Like, I love creating. And I was like, if it's a job, I'm going to hate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to feel like I have to fulfill orders and I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to feel the pressure of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess now my only regret is that I didn't do it sooner and
Wow.
listen to everybody. I think it was really a lot of this, like
Mm-hmm.
limiting belief of like, what if I fail or what if people don't like my stuff or that kind of thing. And so that's kind of how it was all born. I was like, okay, we really need a legitimate business name.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and our property is very feral, and our children are feral and barefoot. And it's just like, it just seemed so appropriate. And I didn't want to use like apothecary and all these other words that I think are totally overused at this point. I'm like, everybody has an apothecary. So I was just trying to come up with something. So, feral pharmacy and taking the the pH out of the farm.
Yeah.
Just seemed appropriate, and that's how the whole thing happened. Really, it was like a decade of transition, and now that it's here and it's thriving and it's doing its own thing, it is super fun, and I don't regret it and I don't hate it. I mean, I'm human, so there's some days that I'm like, ugh,
Yeah.
I don't.
Totally.
But guess what? Then on those days, I don't. Like,
Right.
I'm a small business owner and I have the capability to be like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I love that story. What kind of products, like what are your top sellers? What are like the most popular things you guys have right now?
Probably our tallow.
Yes.
And
Okay. Tell me about
yeah,
tallow because it is like everywhere in my zeitgeist right
every-
now. And I haven't gone there, but I have heard so many things about it.
so I'll send me a message afterwards and give me your address. I'll send you some. But our tallow, honestly, this was a fight because I started to realize when we made our business official that I needed to stay trendy to a certain extent. And I'm not one of those people, but I'm like, tallow is everywhere and it is very fitting for our brand because we do live on a farm. But my big thing is sourcing. So most, like literally besides my tallow, all of my products are plant-based. And it's really because it allows me to be able to control the quality of all of my ingredients. So tallow was hard. It was hard for me to source and still make sure it was ethical and make sure that it still fell in line with, a lot of the morals that I have and the belief system that I have behind creating a lot of these products. So all of that to say, Florida cracker cattle are native to this part of Florida. And we have a lot of cracker cattle that surround this area. And so there is a local farmer that processes their meat. They live on a regenerative farm. So it all fell very in line. And once I had that source, I'm like, I'm diving in, I'm doing it.
Right.
So now that we are on the tallow bandwagon, I know why it's a thing. I really have to remind people it's not a fad. It's been around for hundreds of years. People have been
Right.
moisturizing their skin with tallow forever.
Right. Right.
But then we stopped doing that and started doing synthetics and lotions and all of that kind of stuff. But now that we use it, my hands, I have pictures of the way my hands used to look before I started using tallow, and they would be cracky and bloody and gross. And they were like that from the time that I was a little kid. I remember living in Chicago and like licking my hands, which made it worse, by the way. Not But I would lick my hands like because they were chapped and just were always like that. Like my skin on my hands was always dry and crusty and gross. And now I work with materials all day long, but they're soft and they're not cracking and bleeding and itchy and gross. And same thing for like our feet. We do walk around barefoot a lot, but so the tallow really locks in your natural moisture barrier on your skin instead of adding moisture. So there is a bit of a learning curve. Like I tell people, you have to, like, so if you're using it on your hands, you have to wash your hands, dry your hands, and then apply tallow right away. It's not like lotion in the sense where you can like walk by, grab a pump and just rub it on your hands, because then it's not locking in any natural moisture. It's full of just good nutrients. And so tallow specifically, again, with the sourcing, now that it's crazy and it's everywhere, a lot of people are not ethically sourcing, or they're not using like suet, which is the part of the cattle that you actually want to use, which is like the kidney fat. It's clean. It's not gross. And so it's a long process though. It takes me 6 days to render. And then after it's rendered, then I can whip and turn it into like a whipped consistency that somebody's gonna want to put on their skin. So it is like a labor of love, and my kids hate it. It smells terrible, Mom. But I don't think it smells bad. It smells like butter almost. So I don't want people walking around smelling like a cow though, which is why I take it through that 6-day process of like rendering it slowly. But It's beautiful. It's creamy and dreamy. And like once you get used to it, you won't go back to using lotion.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And I think you bring up a couple things. And one, how cool. I actually didn't know there is a cattle breed that is from Florida.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And how wonderful. And I love that it's from local area and specifically from the sourcing. That's a popular product. And then you have some workshops, right? What are those and what was the thought behind doing those workshops?
So I can't even take credit for them. So one of my good friends, Crystal, who used to live out here, she's since moved back into town, but she was like, we need to teach these people. And I'm like, okay, let's teach them. And so she had the idea of doing really like a 101, like a get your feet wet kind of thing, and see if this is something you want to do. The heart behind it, which I loved, and she's always like, carry the torch, girl, do what you got to do because I'm still out here. And that is that I don't ever want this lifestyle to feel intimidating for people. And I think it does
Mm-hmm.
because we live in a very convenience driven society of fast food and just everything's fast. Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone needs to chill out. So I wanted people to realize that they could do all these things with the things that they already have in their house. Like you don't need to go out and buy all of this fancy equipment and all of these things, even from a canning standpoint. So one of my friends is going to teach this next workshop and she's got like legitimate pressure canners and all that. When I told her I don't have any of that, she was like, "What?" And I'm like, girl, I do everything old school. Like, I just use a stock pot, throw the stuff in it. Like, it's
Yep.
fine. Um, so that's really the heartbeat behind it is you can do this. You are fully capable of doing this. You can preserve your food. It doesn't need to be on a big scale. It doesn't need to be on an Instagram scale where you open up a cellar and there's like all this stuff. It's like you can do it with something really basic. And we have stores locally, like for, people that are around here. Like we have like Detweilers and stuff like that where they always have like a dollar section where a lot of times you can buy an abundance of stuff. It's like go in there and stock up on tomatoes. And then you're like, cool, what do I do with the tomatoes at this point? Make salsa, make whatever. And now you have it for however long. When they have cucumbers, we stock up and make pickles and all the things. So I really wanted people to start to understand that they could live this lifestyle without having to get crazy and make it expensive. And then again, with the whole spoon feeding of information, I think everybody's going to say, I have this perfect way of doing X, Y, and Z, but everybody says that and everybody's way is different.
Right.
Um, and so like figuring out what that is, like my friends that are legitimate sourdough people, when they watch how I do sourdough, they're like, Lindsey, like, that's not how you do it. I'm like, girl, it works,
Right.
okay?
Right.
I have bread. See it? It's right here. So I think that's the thing is it's okay. Like it's okay. It's all okay to just start and not feel this need to be perfect. And so that's really what I want to convey in all of our workshops is whatever it is that you want to start doing, you can do it from a small scale. You don't have to do it big. And then that there is a baby steps process and it is a compounding thing. And it's not like I need you to go out and buy a flock of chickens and start making sourdough and canning all in the same day. Calm down, like do one thing, get good at it,
Mm.
and then be like, okay, now I'm going to go move on to the next thing. And over time, before you know it, you start living a more sustainable lifestyle just out of habit, really, and intentionality versus this very forced, like, I have to do this because everybody else is doing it.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's so commendable. And thank you for being such a wonderful example. I think this idea that you're presenting is because sometimes that type of philosophy, and you mentioned it, like the Instagram, the romanticizing of it all, which there is some beauty in that, but the perfectionist the perfectionism of it all. And what I think of is like that Martha Stewart era where it's like everything had to be perfect. It had to be like this massive to the gills type of style. So to bring it to the realness, I just want to like commend you for that and like thank you, because I think that is such a good voice to have in the crowd that there is of those things. So you have this and you have the business and then schooling the kiddos. When you think about where you are now versus, where you were 10 years ago or when you had your first kiddo, what is some advice that you would give that person, knowing what you know now and knowing where you are now?
I think you just touched on it, and that's to stop trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
Like that we're not going to show up in this polished, prepared in every situation. Like it's just not realistic. In each phase of life and in being a mom, I think there's been parts of myself that like I didn't know were there that I kind of had to uncover. And that I think like the hot mess mom era like started for a second and everyone was like, yeah, we're gonna lean into this. And I think there's like something in there that is like so important. I, through each season, have found like over time trying to be perfect and trying to live up to society standards, all it really did was rattle my nervous system and start to make me feel crazy. Like I was isolated and no one else was going through what I was going through, which is not true. I think we're all feeling some sort of way, if you will, but like letting go of the control of all of that, and that there's this like, oh, balance. Like we hear that a lot, like, oh, you have to balance everything out and all of that. And I think it's just really important to surrender at some point and be like, I'm an authentic person. Like I'm a person that's going to make mistakes. And my children know that. Like, I wasn't good at that. I wasn't good at that for a long time. I wasn't good at like apologizing to my kids and like admitting that I was wrong. And because I wasn't raised that way, I was raised in the like, well, when we said why, we were told like, because I told you so. Like, that doesn't work. Like, why, what? And so I was just actually, my daughter and I, my 17-year-old and I went to a yoga class on Wednesday, and I love spending time like just one-on-one with her because she's very wise beyond her years. And so she was talking about spanking. She's got a boyfriend, and she was like, well, he's like dead set that he like is gonna spank his kids. And I'm like, what? Why? And she's, I don't know. She's like, we got in like this heated discussion about it. And so but she hears, she knows what's going on. So she was like, I went through the whole thing, Mom. I was like, if you hit somebody, like your spouse, that's domestic violence. If you hit somebody when you're out and about, that's like aggravated assault. Like everywhere you go, hitting is not acceptable. But in the parent-child relationship, somehow there's this, it's okay, it's socially acceptable to hit your kids. And she was like, I just don't, like, I don't agree with that. And I said, well, what did he say? Like, because how do 17-year-olds think?
You're like, I'm on the edge of my seat here.
Yeah. And she's like, well, he was like, yeah, I guess. But it's, for her, it was a pivotal moment for her to see how the generational cycle continues, or how you make a choice to break it. And so I think through seeing that through my children as they get older, it shows me like that the things that I've taught them over time have been heard, and it has been a compound. And listen, she was spanked when she was little because my ex-husband and I did believe in that. And so I asked her, like, what did you learn from that? And she was like, nothing. And so I guess the answer to the question really is that I think over time we evolve if we're willing to let go of some of that, and to let go of that. I need to be perfect. I need to show up in this space all the, like, I don't do that with my kids. My kids get to see me be vulnerable. My kids get to see me cry or have moments of weakness or whatever. But they also get to hear me apologize to them when I make mistakes, because I make a lot of them. And then we can laugh about it later in my ragey moments, which I don't really have very much anymore, but I used to when they were little because there was just so many of them. But like now they laugh about it because they can see it. They're like,
Right.
Mom, you've changed so much over the years. You're just different. And I love that they recognize that. Like, I recognize it, but I love more that they get to recognize it, because I think at the end of the day, every parent walks around as an adult and is like, I did the best that I could.
Right.
Right. That's all we did, right? We all did the best that we could. But did you do it intentionally? Like, did you try and change things? And I think when you and I had this conversation when we chat on the phone of like my mom, like, I didn't use my mom as an example of somebody that I wanted to follow. I used her as an example of wanting to do the opposite of what she did, because I knew what that felt like. So letting go of all the mom guilt and all the things. And I think too, the big thing is like just showing up for you at the end of the day. If I don't show up for me, I cannot be my best self for the 4 people that I have to take care of. And I think we do that as moms. We let ourselves go in motherhood and feel like we just need to keep pouring and pouring and pouring from this empty cup, and that somehow like makes us be great moms. And I don't think that's the case.
I think one of the reasons that I started this podcast is I think it's exactly what you said. You have this vision in mind of what you think parenthood is going to be like. And then when the messy and the chaos arrive at your door and never leave, it is like your words, it rattles you like to the core. And I think a lot of my postpartum and honestly experience, because it's been only 3.5 years, has been this like unlearning that it's okay to let go and surrender, because what's in the mess and the chaos is the opportunity to grow, is the opportunity to be intentional, is the opportunity to learn from your kiddos, is the opportunity to surrender. And that's so challenging, I think. And what has surprised me over and over is I feel like nobody warned me or nobody talks about it somehow. And like that is a miss, because I think it sets up people to feel like they are failing when in reality they are not.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I think I was one of the first people in like my friend group at the time that got pregnant. And I remember like sharing like all the things about pregnancy that I feel like nobody shared.
Right.
And they were like, you're not making this seem like anything we ever want to experience. I'm like, listen, I'm going to keep it real. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
I have to get up every 30 minutes to pee in the middle of the night. Everything hurts. I might be dying. I don't know. But I think you're right. There's us not being like raw and real and vulnerable about the things is what makes motherhood feel lonely. And I think it's why a lot of people have postpartum depression and all the other things. I think when I started to realize that every time I change something, I like heal an part of my own inner child. to an extent of like what, like we'll do anything for our kids, right? Like we're going to protect their joy and we're going to make sure they get good sleep and we're going to set boundaries for them and we're going to do all of these things. All of the things that like we don't typically do for ourselves. And we probably didn't have parents that did it for us either. And it's like, what if you treat yourself the same way? Because like little Lindsay, like I show up as the mom that like I needed. And maybe that's not the mom my kids need, right? Like I always tell my kids, I'm like, you're probably gonna have to you're gonna have to go through your
Yeah,
own trauma.
exactly. You have your own journey to go through, okay?
I have to undo all the things that I did that were horrible to you. I'm so sorry. Um, but there's this like emotional mirror, if you will, of like not like when you're not seen and heard, I think it's easy to continue doing that. Hurt people, right? We hear that all the time. But healed people do heal people. We have the capability of doing that if we are intentional but don't want to be perfect. I am intentional, but I fail most days. Like if you asked my kids, they'd probably have a different story to tell. But maybe there's some reverse engineering that has to happen that doesn't happen in motherhood of like, when this is all over, what would my kids say about their childhood?
Right.
Or like when I die, what does my eulogy look like? You know, like what, and I don't want them to stand up and say a bunch of fake things, right? Like I want them to be real and authentic and then showing up as that version of myself, if that's what I want them to say about me. But if I'm not doing that, then that makes things hard. So I think maybe the whole being emotionally available, I think is something that our society like heavily lacks, especially now in this social media era that we're in, where you can be a keyboard warrior and just be a bully.
Totally. Be a total troll and not
Yeah.
face anything.
Yeah.
And for you and this idea of being an example, an imperfect example, which I love, and then sharing with your kiddos what that means. How I would imagine that would come with time. And now that you're here and your oldest one, I don't know if she has plans for something later, but everyone goes out into the world. What is like your hope and dream for that future for them?
I think I want to support them in whatever they choose to do without ever judging what that decision looks like. And understanding that there's like a high level of grace that has to go with that, like for themselves, but also for me. I don't know that I have like big visions for my children other than like I want to raise children that are kind and like all of the other things that I think all of us want as moms. Like, yes, I want you to be successful and I want you to be whatever it is they aspire to be. But I never ask my kids like what they want to do, like when they grow up, because I think it almost takes away from who they are right now. And instead of there being this like, you're going to become this person, it's like we're not celebrating all of the phases and all of the stages that they go through in childhood. It's always, the focus is always on the next. And I don't want them to focus on that. Like I want them to focus on now and not having it all figured out. I think the pressure of having it all figured out made me be like what I would consider almost like a serial student. Like I was constantly going back to school because I thought education defined me. Like oh, I have all these degrees and all these certifications and all this training, but it's if you're not doing anything with it, who cares? And now, really with Feral Farmacy and watching the evolution of Feral Farmacy, I look at every stage of my life and be like, all of these things brought me here, right? And now I'm in this position of what I do every day is so aligned. Like, it's not forceful. It doesn't feel like something I have to do. It's something that I genuinely want to do. I'm constant, like in my head, I'm constantly like curating and creating. And what if I did this? And what if like my mind wants to do that because I've allowed it the space to be able to do that. And so my hope is that I give that same gift to my children, that there is no ceiling. Like, whatever it is that you want to do, even when people tell you it's ridiculous, you can do it. You just have to stay focused on whatever that is, whatever that looks like. And I think I wish somebody gave me the permission to do that, or like even gave me the permission to just be a mom, right? Because there was a season where that's what I did. I was a mom. But I was a mom living in guilt because I knew that wasn't it. Like, I was supposed to be doing something else. And at the time, I was married to somebody that was constantly reminding me that I needed to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Like, that being a mom wasn't enough. And it was like, what are you doing? Like, all the time. And so I think, like, as a society, we do really get focused on that, like the next. And then it's like, we're constantly asking like people like, when are you going to get married? Well, when are you going to have kids? It's like all like, what about right now? Like, however long that takes, like, my daughter wants to travel. She's 17, so she's like getting close to that adulthood, and she's, I want to travel. She's like, one of her friends just went to Spain for 2 months, and she's like, how did you just get to be in Spain all summer? And I'm like, it's a choice. She went, and she's like, well, I want to do that. And I'm like, then do it. But I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that growing up. I always heard pretty much, that's not a job, that's a hobby, or you're not going to like that, or that's not conducive for raising a family, or you need to pick a career path that isn't going to affect your family. Like, it was always, there was always something negative about anything that I wanted to do. And I'm sure people could probably pick out something negative that I'm doing now too. And that's fine. I don't care. But I want my kids, I think my vision for my children is that they walk authentically and that they choose something that aligns with them. And that when God says move, that they move, that they don't stay stuck and stagnant in a dead end job because they want to be loyal. I think there's something profound about constantly changing what you're doing and evolving and making different choices for your life as time goes on.
Beautifully said. Such good, like, I feel like I need to hear that. So thank you. For alignment, because I think that is a word that is flying around. And just to make it personal, I feel like I have been seeking alignment and what that means to me. So anyone in a moment where they're not feeling quite authentic, or they're feeling uneasy or restless, or they're feeling fine, but like the rest of the world around them makes them feel a certain way. How did you get on this quest to find alignment, and or what kind of advice would you give somebody who is looking for that alignment within themselves?
That's a good question. Man, I don't even know where to start. I think, first of all, I think it's a very multidimensional thing, because as a human, we want to focus on like getting good at whatever our craft is. Okay, so say you're a mom and you're like, I'm going to be the best mom ever. But all the other things are failing, right? Like, your physical health isn't good. You're not nourishing your body. You're not sleeping properly. Like, all of these other things fail. There's this wholeness that has to exist that is, I think, something that we never achieve. Like, I don't think that there's a destination. I think that's our journey here. And so for me, the balance of all of that seems so overwhelming when you look at the big picture of, okay, so I have to make sure my finances in order. I have to make sure that I'm getting enough water every day, that I'm really drinking the healthy, that I'm getting 10,000 steps in.
Oh my God.
And it's like
Yes.
all of these things, and you're like, I'm not doing any of those things. And then we just don't. So I think over time for me, and what it looks, so a lot of people ask, like, how do you juggle it all? How do you manage it all? I don't. Like, listen, I don't. Some days are great, some days are not, but I go into each day with an intention and I live a very intentional lifestyle. So at the end of my day, every day, I am planning tomorrow. So it's okay, I need to get up at this time if I want to be able to work out before I have to do this or whatever I need to do. And that is in an order of time blocking almost. And so I think your life alignment has to follow the same order of making sure that you're managing and juggling all of those things to the best of your ability. You're not going to be perfect at it. Something for me, so I think I thought that I had a lot of this stuff figured out. And then just this past October, my life went into this horrible spiral of chaos. And I had, I guess, a nervous breakdown, maybe. I don't really know what it was.
Yeah.
But I was like, what is happening?
Right.
Like, how did we get here?
Wow.
And I remember feeling like I needed something, like I needed a shift, I needed something, but I didn't know what my need was. And then I learned about this thing called the polyvagal ladder, which is like a psychology-based theory. And the theory is that like your nervous system works like a ladder. And so like there's the ground, and then at the very top there's a freeze state. And then each rung of this ladder is where your fight or flight exists. And I've lived in fight or flight pretty much my whole life. I had a very chaotic childhood. And I always thought that I was like really grounded. I always was like, I just let things roll off my shoulders. I don't let things bother me. Like, I don't like when people tell me they have like anxiety and depression and all of these things. I'm like, why? There was this part of me that like almost lacked empathy for a lot of those things because I'm like, just stop doing that.
Right.
If you just stop doing that, then you'll be fine. What's wrong with you? And so in this nervous breakdown that I had, my midlife crisis, maybe, I don't know. I learned that I wasn't actually grounded, that I was stuck in a freeze state, and I lived there for so long that my body literally was like, we're done living here.
Wow.
And so I was forced to have to figure it out, to have to adjust. And I went to, I saw this thing pop up on social media that there was like a mini, like a somatic retreat, like to reset your nervous system. And it was like one of those, like, do you feel? And like, I was reading the whole thing and I'm like, that's me. That's what's wrong with me. And I went, and it was like a 3 hour. So time out. I asked for it for my birthday. Okay. I don't ask for anything ever. And I remember taking the link and sending it to my husband and saying, I don't want anything for my birthday besides this. And he was like, okay. And I was like, that's it. Like, don't give me anything else. Like, okay. So on my birthday, he literally handed me the piece of paper that he bought me a ticket. So romantic. And I went, and It was like a breath work, yoga, sound bath, like
Mm-hmm.
all of these things. And I remember in the beginning when I first started, I'm like, I am so like holistic, but this is like next level. Like, what are we doing? What's happening?
Right.
And then I remember just telling myself, like, you have to surrender. Like,
Mm.
today is the day. And I'm going to try not to cry. So, I, that day was like so overwhelmingly emotional for me. In the stages of that workshop, she was addressing all of the things that I was going through. And I was like, oh my God, like, I feel so dumb.
Oh.
Like, why didn't I like see all of these signs that like it was too much? It was so compounded, like life got to be too much. And I just kept going, I know how to do this. I know how to handle this. I know
Mm.
how to manage all of this. But I was never addressing like me. So here we can go back to your alignment thing. I guess I wasn't aligned. Like I felt like I was, and I had all my ducks in a row, but there was like a piece of me that had a really big miss.
Mm.
And so in that journey of being at that retreat, I remember coming home and I was exhausted. I literally came home and slept for 4.5 hours, and I wanted to be left alone. And coming out of that, I started to realize like I do all of the things, right? I do make sure I get a good night of sleep. I make sure that I'm nourishing my body. I make sure that I'm moving. I make sure that I'm doing all of these things, right? Like I'm reading every day. I'm trying to improve myself in all these areas, but like I wasn't addressing the thing, like I stuffed a lot of the
Mm.
things that I went through as a child for so long. And so they weren't even present day things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was like inner child stuff that I didn't work through, that I just, and like grief and all of that, that I just ignored. And then it all came to a head. And I think like we never know when that's going to show up, right? Like we
Right.
never, like if you've ever gone through any level of grief, you're like the stages of grief are so alive and well, but there's no pattern. And
Right.
like you're almost like, oh my God, why are we doing this?
Mm.
This is so inconvenient. And I remember saying that at that somatic retreat. This is so inconvenient.
Like, this is not the right time. This shouldn't have happened right now. I don't have time for this. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I have it. Like, it's all figured out. Like, I'm like doing the thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like now I'm a part of a community called the Root Collective, and it was born after that retreat. But it is like a somatic sisterhood, if you will. And in that, there has been so much healing for me and like figuring out all that stuff that like I have carried that I wasn't even aware of,
Yeah.
has like presented itself. And I think in that it has allowed me to approach every aspect of my life differently. And that was new, right? Like people like that was like recent. Yeah, that was like really recent. It seems like a lifetime ago because I think now I have like tools and I feel more equipped, and I
Mm-hmm.
know, okay, when I'm having these moments, I can clearly see like I'm grounded or I'm in that freeze state,
Mm-hmm.
because I will get numb and then I just want everybody to leave me alone, and I'm not emotional and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
really anything.
Right.
I'm just like numb,
Yeah.
and I don't, and so that for me, I mistaked for so long as like I'm just grounded and I have my stuff together,
Mm-hmm.
like it's all figured out. And it wasn't. It was like you have lived in this really chaotic
Wow.
environment, never ever addressed any of those things. So I don't know that I answered your question and all of that, but I think it's been a learning curve, and it doesn't stop. Like it doesn't, there is no ending. I remember my husband saying that to me. So at what point do we just not have to do all this work?
Right.
Right. And I'm like, I don't think that's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I, I think this is the journey. This is the journey everybody talks about. And there's like some like improvement that needs to happen. But if your spouse isn't experiencing that for you, I think, or experiencing that with you, I think that's a whole nother level of like layer that is very hard, because it's like you can feel like you're constantly showing up and you're aligned, but like it becomes glaringly obvious once you start doing all of this work. You can look at people and be like, you are so unhealed. What is wrong with you? Like, just based off response. And like, I'll do it sometimes. Like, as soon as the words come out of my mouth, I'm like, oh, it's gross. Like, I take it back. Take it back. Um, so I don't know. I don't think it's a destination. I think it's constant evolution of our journey here.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Lindsey. And I think one of the things that I love to hear, and something that I've struggled with, is this idea of evolution, because you want to hold tight to the control and say, oh, I've got this for you figured out. I'm like, I got this vision I'm holding on so tightly to. And it's just like that friction between maybe that is some things that you want, but also here's what you should lean into and where your life is headed, can sometimes cause that internal battle so deeply. So that's, thank you for sharing that story. And thank you for sharing it in a way where we can all identify with that. Because I think you're right. I think the path isn't a destination. It's totally, as cliche as it is the journey that makes it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Incredible. For you now and for Feral Farmacy, I know you've been asked how you balance it all, but I think it's more, what I would like to ask is more, how do you make it work? You're homeschooling your kids are home. You are running this business. How do you find peace, or how do you find what works for you? What kind of rhythm are you doing that works for you?
Yeah, I think intentional time management is like the biggest thing. I think when you take your week and you're like, we all get the same amount of time every single week. We have 168 hours, and it's, what does that look like? And I think some people take time management as like, that sounds really rigid and gross. I mean, it does. Especially for me, because I am pretty free-spirited in the sense of like, I don't want to schedule, I don't want to punch a clock, I don't want to answer to anybody, I don't want a boss.
Yeah.
Like figuring out all the things I don't want and then going like, okay, how can I make this work? And I think it helps because my kids are so staggered in age, and I have a child in every age group, and my teenagers are very helpful. But my day, like I said, is very intentional. I make sure that I try and fit it all in. And the way I do that is by establishing what like my non-negotiables for the day are. I don't do to-do lists. I don't like to-do lists. I feel like a to-do list is like a hopefully I'll get around to it. So I just do like non-negotiables first. What is a non-negotiable for me? The non-negotiable most days for me is like, I have to do something for myself at some point during the day because that's important to me. And whatever that looks like, even if it's a small pocket of time, I like getting up before my kids wake up. That allows me to be able to like have time by myself, quiet. And then I like to typically be the last person to fall asleep at night because, again, I get like a pocket of window at the end of the day too that I can just decompress. And then just like figuring out the rest of the stuff. I'm not leaving, right? Like I'm
Right.
not leaving to go to work. I'm not leaving to go anywhere. I'm here. And so working through that. So I think I'm home. So I don't want my whole day to be full of work and me
Right.
telling my kids, like, no, I'm working right now. So it's very like, it is broken up throughout the day. And then I have days that like I don't work, that I make sure like my kids have something to look forward to. We normally do like Fun Friday. So they know like on Fridays we're going to go do something fun, that kind of thing. And then the same thing with really like, I try to make everything educational for them. So even if they're helping me, like working, I'll teach them like how my scale works or something like that. But they all like to help. So I think getting them involved is really key versus me feeling like they need to go somewhere so that I can work.
I love that.
So they're very much a part. You'll see when I make like reels or videos or anything, there's always little hands in the videos. They want to be in there. So that's the biggest like balance, is just making sure that I'm intentional with my time.
I think that's so powerful. And I feel like it's so overlooked because oftentimes you can just slip in or sink into either the rhythm or the requirements of the day, or be so distracted that it really does take work to be intentional.
Yeah, for sure. We don't do a lot of things that I think, I don't do a lot of filler stuff that I think a lot of people fill their time with. I don't mindlessly scroll social media. We don't binge Netflix. I don't, like, we don't do a lot of those things. So it's, even if we're outside taking care of our animals or watering the garden or whatever the case may be, like we're together and we're using it like as a learning. So like right now we have butterflies. So like the kids have loved following the butterflies to see where they land, to see if they're going to lay an egg. And so like that whole, it's like little things. There's pockets for me throughout, the pockets of joy, I call them. Oh, like, but I'm mindful of it. Like I will say it in my head when it's happening. I'm like, this is it. This is it. Pocket of joy. And then when my husband gets home, like my daughter will, my youngest will be like, guess what we learned today?
Cute.
Like, she says it and he's like, oh, okay, like whatever. But it's normally a life skill. Like it's not, we're not sitting down and doing like algebra. We're doing real life like things that they can experience.
I love that philosophy. Is there anything, like if somebody's considering homeschooling, or if somebody's like question mark around homeschooling, what is some like advice or just like some thoughts that you would either encourage them to or want them to think about before they made that decision?
Well, I think it's very tailored to every family. Like your family dynamic looks totally different than my family dynamic. And I think that that is true for every single person. And so back to the social media land. In the land of social media, it's very easy to fall into a comparison trap of, well, they're doing this and it looks so beautiful and magical. And then when we tried it, it was horrible.
Yeah.
I bet if you talked to them, they would be like, yeah, our day looks the same. So I think there's that whole thing, the expectation of what you think that looks like. I think the other thing is that when a lot of people start to homeschool, they want to replicate the classroom at home. And that's not a thing. Like, you can't.
I love that.
I don't even care if you're a teacher and you're like, I've run a classroom for 20 years and I can't get my kids to sit still. It is different when you become the educator, when you're putting pressure on yourself to be an educator for your children. So I don't lead really from that space ever. I ask a lot of questions. And so again, like I think it's important that my children have a say in that. For us, that's something that's really important. I'm not trying to replicate the classroom in my house. I don't want my kids to memorize stuff. I know that a lot of people really like that, like, because that's what we're used to. I don't want my kids to have to memorize stuff. I don't like tests because, again, I think we're forced to memorize. Then we download, like, we unload it onto this test and then we kind of forget it. And so, watching my children teach themselves, like, especially my younger two, because they've never been to traditional school, so they only know homeschool. But we do child-led learning in our house, so, like, they learn when they want to learn, and I don't force them to do anything that they don't want to do. So, if they wanna write for the day and we're 5 minutes in and they're like, "My hand hurts, I'm done," I'm like, "We're done." And I just kinda let it go. So, I don't ever want it to not be fun for them. So, when they want to learn things, like, when my son wanted to learn how to read, I basically asked a lot of questions, gave him the tools that he needed to learn how to read, and within a very short window of time, he self-taught. Like, he taught himself how to read, and people are like, "That he's not normal. That's not, like, not the average kid." And I'm like, "It's the average kid if you're putting them in an environment that allows them to thrive that way."
Yeah.
But it's not when you're doing this high pressure, high stakes, like, you have to pass this test. People ask all the time, "Are my kids on pace?" I'm like, "Pace for what?"
Right.
Like, my 9-year-old boy is a third grader, technically. He's at probably a sixth or seventh grade math level and reading level, but he's probably at, like, a first grader's writing level.
Yeah.
He hates it.
Right.
And I'm like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, he's not gonna go his whole life without writing.
Of
Like,
course.
he's gonna figure it out at some point, but I have to take the pressure off me and off of him to not do that. And I think that starts from a really early age. Like, I never felt the need with him to potty train him, like, this, like, heavy, like, "You have to go pee pee in the potty, no, we're gonna give you M&Ms as your award for peeing in the potty," and doing this whole thing. I waited till he was like, "I don't wanna pee in my pull-ups anymore."
Right.
Like, "I wanna wear big boy underwear." I'm like, "Perfect." He wore big boy underwear. He's never wore a diaper ever again, and he's fine. So, I think the biggest thing is with homeschooling is very that. Take the expectation, throw it out the window, stop trying to duplicate the classroom in your house, because that's not a thing, and then really leaving the perfect piece of it, like, that blows my mind when people are like, "I'm not educated enough to educate my children." I'm like, the very system that you would send your children to school, you're saying didn't educate you well enough to educate your children.
Wow.
That, for me, is pretty mind-blowing. That should be a good indicator that you didn't learn that. And I'll ask people that, like, off the cuff, tell me 3 things that you learned in school that stuck with you forever. And 95% of the time, those 3 things, none of them are academic. No one's, "Oh, well, I learned how to rehearse the Declaration of Independence." Like, what? That's not a thing. Like, normally those 3 things are socially driven, which we have the capability of doing without sending our children to school. I also recognize that not everybody wants to homeschool. And so I think now in today's day and age, we have the capability of having control over our children's education if we are intentional about it. You don't have to send your kid to the public school system. You can choose an education system that is more tailored to your family. Maybe you don't want them to be at school for 8 hours a day, but you want them to be at school for 4 hours a day or 3 days a week or whatever the case may be. You can find a program that fits that. It's just a matter of going through the motions to do that. And I think too, like, letting go of the, like, if this doesn't work for my family, it's okay to do this, and that doesn't mean that I failed. Because that's what a lot of people will say, "Oh, I tried to homeschool, we sucked at it." Really? Like, on what metric?
Yeah. You're like, how?
Who decided that? So I think that's probably that's what I tell people all the time, especially when they ask me like, what is your day? What does your average day look like or whatever? I'm like, it's totally different for every family. I don't want my kids to wake up to an alarm. I love that my kids wake up when their body naturally wants to wake up. We don't like to rush around in the morning. It's not something that our family enjoys doing. We've tried multiple co-ops. My kids hated it. Like we've done all of the things and I never looked at it as like we failed and we sucked at that. I just looked at it like that wasn't a good fit for our family. Let's try this. And in this season, that's what we're doing. Like we're home. All four of my kids are home. We're not in a co-op. We're not part of any type of group. And it's working right now. Ask me again in September. No problem.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That's so insightful too. Because people that have never experienced that have just no idea. Is there a myth or anything that you would like to debunk about that you feel like people assume around homeschooling?
There's so many. I think the socialization piece is the biggest piece.
Yeah.
Is people constantly feel like if my children aren't out and about socializing, that they're not going to know how to do that. And I'm like, our entire existence is being social. Like every day. And my kids make friends really easy. Like my son makes friends so easy that it almost breaks my heart because everywhere he goes, he makes a friend and then he never sees them again. So he's like, I made a friend, da, 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 da. And then I'm like, yeah, I mean, that she'll never see again. And some kid just came up to us. We were at Lowry Park Zoo and him and my son hit it off. And then he was like, the little boy came up to me and he was like, you know what I hate about this? And I was like, what? And he was like, every time I come here, I make a friend and then I never see him again. And I'm like, we say the same thing.
Oh my God.
And so I was like, maybe you guys can stay in touch. Ask your mom if it's okay. And had that whole conversation. But my kids make friends everywhere they go. They talk to people. I mean, they're not talking to strangers, right? They don't do that, but they learn how to socialize. My 17-year-old has a job, which I love. Like people will be like, she works at a pizza shop. So they'll be like, I went into her work and oh my goodness, she's so well spoken and she's so sweet and blah, blah, blah. And she's going to show up as somebody different that we don't get to see here. So that's nice to hear. I'm like, oh, okay. She wasn't rude. They're like, no. So I think the socializing is the big thing. Like a lot of people are really hung up on that. Oh, your kid's not going to know how to socialize. They're not going to be well adjusted. They're not going to know how to deal with conflict and all of that. I don't think that's true at all. They're managing that amongst themselves as well. So
Okay, well, here are some rapid fire questions. If you could sum up parenthood in one word, what would it be?
chaotic in the best way.
Of course. Of course. We find the beauty in the chaos. We're there now.
For sure. For sure.
I love it. What is the one parenting myth you wish would go away?
The need to be perfect.
Oh.
Like the need to be, for sure. I think we put way too much pressure on ourselves, not just in parenthood, in every aspect, but I think parenthood is next level.
Yeah.
Like we want some type of validation that we're not failing our children. And with homeschooling, I think that's heavy. Like that's heavy because there's a lot surrounding that because it's like my responsibility. But I think the need to not be perfect.
I love that. I need that on repeat in my head. Okay. What in your life right now do you feel like you're just totally crushing it?
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Nothing. Nothing and everything all at once.
Right.
Honestly, I think setting really clear boundaries is something that I'm getting really, really good at. But it's taken me a long time to get here. So right now I am working very hard to protect my peace and to make sure that my boundaries are clear, and that when I'm not in the confines of my home, which is where I feel the most at peace, that I'm capable of like going out into the world and being like, we're not doing that. Yeah.
That is such a superpower. And the fact that you even grasp that as like your crushing it moment, I mean, high five. That's massive. That is massive. Okay, there is one more thing that I wanted to talk about, and that's your involvement in your community, because I was really moved by what you had posted on social. And I just want to say, from someone who doesn't know anything, and it's that community piece and caring so deeply about that you're standing up and you're being loud and saying something. And that alone, I just think takes like such guts. So can you, I don't know, what kind of like gave you the like umph to do it, or what do you feel that you maybe that needed to be you?
So I think this is a really full circle thing, because I think it takes us back to the beginning of the conversation, which is that my children are the center of everything that I do. And I think it's important that when I am fighting for something that I'm convicted in and that I believe in, and I know that I'm doing it for my children, I'm also doing it for a whole community of people that probably don't have a voice enough to stand up and say, I don't like this, or this isn't working. Again, I do think we live in a very compliant society by design. They don't want us to speak out. And with that, we feel like our voice needs to stay suppressed, right? We don't want to ruffle feathers, and we don't want to upset anybody. And I had posted on social media the whole idea of not standing up for things that you believe in because of that reason. Like, oh, I don't want to upset anybody, or I don't want pushback. Like, listen, I call it love letters. It is not love letters. It's hate mail
Oh my God.
that comes into
Yes.
my inbox.
Yes.
It is never ending, but that's what happens when you are in the public light and people see you and know your belief system is very clear. I'm not afraid. I think I lived suppressed for so long that I'm not afraid to do that at this point, if it's something that means change. And I grew up in a house where my voice was suppressed because I didn't feel safe. And that safety piece can go into adulthood right now, right? I can say, oh, well, I don't necessarily feel safe because people are constantly threatening our family, or whatever the case may be, if I have a differing view. But I do feel safe. I feel safe knowing that however it pans out, that I did what was right by the bulk majority of people. So advocacy work has been something that I've probably done really hard for like the last 10-ish years. And I'll say I don't love it in the sense of the amount of people that I upset,
Yeah.
because that's not my motive, is to not upset people. But I think the collective is pretty aggressive.
Right.
And they're just like, "Ah!" And I'm like, if you knew my heart and my intention behind what I'm doing, I think you would feel different. But most people are not seeking to understand perspective. They're just like, you have a differing opinion, and so you're a bad person. So I think that like started with medical freedom stuff, me learning. So my second daughter was severely vaccine injured, and I was like, no one's talking about this. Like, why aren't people talking about it? And then I realized people were talking about it, but we were being censored. And it was like, you're spreading misinformation, you're killing people's babies, like all this stuff is like, what? These are real moms with real stories. Like, and so that's really how it started. A lot of the advocacy stuff that I do is medically driven. So most recently, it was putting a 5G tower in beautiful old Mayaca, a 199-foot industrial tower that they wanted to install in our really rural landscape. And I just kept thinking, like, this is the start. This is the start of them pushing Lakewood Ranch into Mayaca City. No. Like, I will lay down right here in this field that you plan on installing this, and I will stop this. So I rallied. I did not intend for it to turn into the chaos that ensued. It was a pretty intense, like 72 hours that I went through, that I really had to download my nervous system this week
Wow.
afterwards,
Yeah.
because I was like, oh my God, like at the end of the day, I think it was on Tuesday, I like told my husband, I'm like, I think I'm running a fever and I'm dying. Like, the stress is too much. And all the hate mail was still coming in. But in it all, I always remind myself, like, my kids, I want my kids to know that I was never silent in the moments that mattered. And that when they look back and things change, like even during COVID, like with all of that crazy, I was pretty vocal during all of that. Like, why are we masking our children and why aren't we breathing clean air, and what's happening right now? And I wanted my kids to know that I was never silent in those moments, that I never stopped fighting for them, that I never said, like, we're not doing that. And so this one was different because this wasn't necessarily medically driven in like the change of things. It was medically driven in the like radioactivity of society, which everyone's, oh, you're a hypocrite, right? You have a cell phone. We all have cell phones. That means you have radiation. You use your microwave, right? So everybody has an opinion. So this one was a little bit different for me. But anyways, all of my community stuff is always like for my children and then for the people that I think don't want to stand up and speak out. And then they go like, that sucked.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
if you could have gotten loud or like said no, I think in those moments, when it does work out, right, they're not all victories. We had a victory this week and that was sweet. They're not all victories.
Right.
Sometimes you are misunderstood and you have to move on beyond that. Wow, we lost this one and like my voice wasn't heard and I'm completely misunderstood. But I think I'm so open to listening to other people's opinions. I'm like, educate me, teach me why you think the way that you think. And then I can take what I want and leave the rest. Like,
Right.
I don't need you to change my mind. I'm not going to change somebody's mind on social media, right? Like, I'm not going to make somebody live their life the way that I live mine, and I don't want to. But I always want to get people to think outside the box. So that is my drive behind doing any of that type of work. It is emotionally taxing, though.
Wow. I mean, it has to be. And you're right. When you touch like a certain something, it like causes nutso things happening. So, I mean,
A lot.
that's a lot. Yeah. And the fact that that's like part of your story, I think it just is so impressive because not everyone can go through that or keep speaking out, even though it feels like you can't.
Yeah. I think people don't realize that they like people aren't authentically walking in the power that we are really given at birth. I'm not trying to offend people in anything that I'm doing, and I'm not trying to make people feel less than, or it's not coming from a self-righteous standpoint of like my way is the best way, just do things the way I do them. That's not my intention ever. But my intention always is to like get people to critically think for themselves and go, if you have all this information, what's the conclusion that you come to? And then figuring that, like navigating that, not what society tells you to think, there's so much division. And I think at the end of the day, we all ultimately want the same thing, right? Like we want to figure out, like we're trying to hack the life journey.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
whatever you have going on, you're like, how can I figure this out? And so I think we're all trying to do that. But how boring would life be if we all did the same thing or thought the same way? But I don't think that we need to argue about it. So I always am like, it's a discussion with purpose, right? We're going to have a heated conversation.
Yeah.
You're going to share your point of view. I'm going to share my point of view. Neither one of us are probably going to change each other's point of view.
Right.
But if you can walk away from a conversation and go,
Yeah.
maybe like now I have a better understanding of why you see things the way that you do. And that's okay.
It's okay. Yes, exactly. You can still be a great person. It's okay. Oh my goodness. Yes. Wow. That is amazing. Well, what a gift. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's amazing to stand up for what you believe in.
Thank you.
Yeah. I love it. Gosh, Lindsey, I never want this to end.
Thanks for listening to It's a Circus. If today's episode made you feel a little less alone, share it with a friend who might need it too. We are building something amazing at the Turner Brothers Circus, an entire space designed for parents to find connection, laughter, and support. I'd love for you to be a part of it. Remember, you're doing better than you think. Stay grounded, stay real, and embrace that beautiful mess. And as always, the show must go on. Until next time.